Mr. Hank Stewart. We'll hear some wonderful inspirational words from him, and then he will share some of his beautiful poetry with us as well.
Yeah, I want to say one more thing too. Can we get Hank on? Here we go. This is something I learned. How you doing, Hank? Thanks for staying up for
Man,
us.
I am so amazing.
I gotta tell you this before we get off the screen. I gotta give your flowers live in front of everybody. Um, One of the things that I learned from you live, because I just talked about how you took the baton and you did something with it. One of the things that I learned from you was how you do that. How do you learn at the feet of giants? And Hank invited me out to go to one of his mentors. And on the surface, it could have been just kind of like, hey, just come with me and break bread. But what he did was he brought me to go and learn in the way that he learns at the home of one of these giants. Wow. Yeah. And I got to witness Hank learning, and I got to learn and live from this example. And I want to thank you in front of everybody here and say thank you for teaching me how to learn.
Well, we lost Tommy. We lost Tommy Dortch, who was the national president of the 100 Black Men. He was, man, Tommy was so much to so many. And we lost Tommy back in February. His funeral was early March. And so that when you and I went to Tommy's house, Charles, that was one of the last times I saw him. And so it was another tough loss for us. We lost so many of my mentors in the last 3 years. We lost Dr. Lowry right at the onset of COVID. Congressman John Lewis and Dr. C.T. Vivian passed during COVID on the same day. And so we've lost, but what they did was, there's an African proverb that says, when an elder dies, a library just burned down. When an elder dies, a library just burned down. And so, we were getting those books out of those libraries before the library burned down. Let me back up and just say, I cannot thank you and Dr. Scott, you and Terry, and Charles, you and David, and the entire team. I was excited. I've been listening to the speakers, and it's just been freaking phenomenal. I mean, I don't know how you sit on this live teach-in and not be energized and motivated to do something, right? To show up, to answer the bell, to answer the call. I gotta commend you all. I mean, sometimes I think we take each other for granted because we have access to each other. And so you don't know sometimes who you're talking to because the relationships are so tight and so close, and you take it for granted until you sit back and look. And all of the speakers that you all have aligned for this teach-in have been just the absolute best. I've sent it to different people, and they're listening in, and some of them, like Reverend Motley, said, he was just blown away. And he was one of the young ladies that he heard was, I can't remember her name. He said, I think I'm gonna buy all of her books. And she came on, I think she was right at, I'm trying to pull up his message. And he sent me this message at 12:06 this morning. So we were texting back and forth, and I was bragging about Common Powell and just the energy. And he says, I will purchase as much as her writing. And it was the young lady who was talking about slavery and not really, she said something that I thought was really powerful, not letting our history, and I'm quoting another civil rights activist, don't let our story start with slavery, basically. We were so much more than just slaves, and she talked about the richest man in America, in the world, was from Africa, and his worth of being worth over $400 billion. We talk about DeSantis and we talk about all of the other billionaires, but there was an African who was the richest, still holds the title as the richest man, gave out gold nuggets. And so I'm looking at that, and I got other friends who looked at it, and I posted it on social media. So I want to do my part because you all are doing yours, and if a drunk hang out with a drunk, neither one of them ever be sober. So you have to have, good friends like you all, and you try to You try to do your part. That's all. I think that's all God requires of us. Just do your part.
That's
You know,
right.
Wow,
just play your position. You know what I mean? If you look at sports, you don't have to play every position on the field. Just play your position and play your position well.
yeah.
You know, if you're playing football, if you're the lineman, just make your blocks. You know what I mean? If you're the wide receiver, make your cuts. You know what I mean? If you're the running back, you hit your holes, right?
Yeah.
If you're the, whatever position you are, if you're the center, you call the shots on the line. But go ahead, Doctor.
Well, Hank, if your position is to be a community organizer, to be a person who changes community, you are doing your position very well. If
And
your
that's all I
position is
want
to
to
help
do.
change the world, you are killing it.
That's all I want to do. I just want to play my part. And you can't, don't compare yourself to other people, right?
Mhm.
Just play your part. Just grind on know your part. And if everybody plays their part, the band comes together. It's harmonic. It's the sound is, because the drums are playing up, the cymbals are playing their part, the clarinet is playing. If you play your part in the band, the music is going to sound really good.
Music's beautiful. Well, here's what we would like to do. First of all, thank
Mhm.
you so much for sending the link out to folks. And the
Yes.
person you're talking about is Dr. Kelly Carter Jackson.
Yes.
So I'm sure
Yes,
she
yes,
will appreciate that compliment as well.
yes.
So thank you for sending out the link. Thank you for being here. We want to make sure that you have your time to continue on with that inspiration. And then before the end of your time at 3:30, would you grace us with a couple of poems, please?
Yeah. I would love to.
And tell people how they can purchase your poems too. And we will drop that link in our network so we can share that with folks. So we, at this point, would like to turn it over to you because you deserve your own stage. And we will see you on
I
the other
like
end
being
of
on
this.
stage with you all together. I mean, this is I would request that you all stay with me because it makes me better. It's thank you, and I'll make sure I pass her name along. And I just think that, again, thank you all for allowing me to be a part over the last year and a half. It was Charles, you weren't there the other day when you all were here. And I said, Terry, David, how long have we been doing this? I said, it's been 3 years. She said, no, it's only been a year. It just seems like we've been together for so long, with the teachings and all of the visits that you've had coming to the city. It's just been amazing. I have grown so much over the last, few years. With a couple of years, I think it's at least been 2 years because you all came when Warnock was running, I think. So and the first time, and so I think he did, yeah. So I think we've been together at least 2 years, but it just seems like it seems like it's been at least 5. I mean, it just seems like so much longer because there's so much work to be done. And then let me just comment on the gentleman you had who was fired from the college, and his commitment. He says he's in for the long haul. His family's behind him. These are the stories, in my opinion, my humble opinion, those are the stories, those are the things, the Montgomery bus boycott, Terry, was not cute in day 1 or day 6 or day 18 or the first month or the first 3 months, Charles. It wasn't cute then. I mean, it was still, people were still having to carpool and share rides. The Montgomery bus boycott was the original. It was the original Uber and shared ride. That's where they get the idea from. Let's give them credit. Because they knew how to share ride and call and put and it wasn't cute for the first 6 months and 9 months, even the first year. It was 381 days. Right? That type of commitment, we have to have that type of commitment to this cause. And so Florida will break because we would have that type of commitment. You gotta stay with it. You can't come in for the short haul, and you all never do that. You come in, Charles, we were together, we had breakfast together one time because you were coming in town with some more young people and hitting the streets. I think you were going up into Gwinnett and all these areas that were starch conservatives and red are now blue, purple and blue in a lot of cases. You know what I mean? And so Georgia, we had 2 Senate seats flipped in 1 year in a red state. Come on, let's be completely honest. I mean, Ossoff and Warnock, that was not, that's and so Common Powell has something to do with that. Your hands, your name has to be mentioned in those wins. You have to. And so that's why everybody who's listening today should, join the email list and get the emails from Dr. Scott. That's why you should send a little donation in. It didn't take a lot. When you look back at the civil rights movement, it was the people who were baking Terry the pies and all of that and having the fish fries and all that kept things going. It was those, it wasn't a whole lot. I was talking, Gwen and I, the Stewart Foundation, we were speaking to some students the other day, and we had a financial literacy program. And I said, if you take a penny away from a millionaire, if you're worth $1 million, $1 million, and you take a penny away, does that change your elite category? And everybody said, yes, it does. That one piece of brown carpet changes an elite category. We cannot discount any small piece or thing that we think is small that's added to the overall piece. That one piece of brown carpet would take you out of having a lot of money and being a millionaire, right? And so just the way you all have grinded and making those little impacts and bringing the teachers in. I had the luxury of speaking to some students in Canada because of Common Powell, right? I had the luxury of speaking to students in Canada because of this organization. I had the luxury of, talking to a lot of amazing civil and human rights leaders of all colors and all ages and all shapes and sizes because of this organization. So I'm so honored. I'm just as honored to be a part of Common Powell that I am with the NAACP and the SCLC and all these amazing organizations, the Georgia Coalition for the People's Agenda, all these organizations that's out here that's grinding every single day. They don't, their names are not always called, right? But they're the ones who wake up and lace up. Senator Warnock talked about how his dad says, he would get up and wake them up. They didn't have a place to go. He said, get up, put your shoes on. So when you get up and just get ready to do something, be prepared. You gotta be, Charles, you gotta be prepared. And so I said to groups all the time, I no longer plan. I want to be prepared. I just want to be ready. I don't plan things anymore. God is far outseated anything that I could have ever planned. So I don't plan anymore. I didn't plan to have an opportunity to recite poetry to the mother of the civil rights movement, Rosa Parks. I didn't plan to have the opportunity to recite McDonald's commercials. 365 Black helped coin that phrase when that new venture came out. I didn't plan to do the Trumpet Awards and the Essence Musical Festival. I didn't plan to have the opportunity to recite for Michelle Obama when she was the first lady at the 102nd First Lady's Luncheon. I didn't plan any of those things. I didn't plan nothing. But I was prepared for those situations. And so one of the things that Common Powell is doing is getting us prepared, making sure that we're prepared so when the opportunity presents itself, we're ready. We're ready. It's about being ready for those opportunities. It's about that commitment of being ready. 381 days. The Montgomery bus boycott wasn't 6 weeks. It was 381 days. And I tell people all the time, are you committed? When I work out today, I haven't worked out today yet because I took a little nap so I would make sure I was up on time and ready for this. But when I work out today, Charles, it'll be 2,331 straight workout days for me. And my inspiration was the Montgomery bus boycott. Being committed, so you find creative ways to get your workout in. There are times where I get up and I grind, I work out hard. And there's some days all I can do is get 30 minutes, 45 minutes on the treadmill in. But I get it in because of my commitment to be there every single day and work out every single day. 381 days. That needs to be a number and that might need to be, Charles, that might need to be a t-shirt for us. 381 days. And when people ask you, what is 381 days? It talks about, how the commitment of the Montgomery bus, and that's how committed we are to where we are now. Another number is 64446. And a lot of people have no idea what that number is, but it was Nelson Mandela was the 644th president, and his jail number was he was 644. I mean, I'm sorry, it was 46664. He was the 466 president in 1964. So understanding these numbers, those are the numbers that drive me, that motivate me. And so when you start understanding the commitment, Dr. Joseph Eccles Lowry, I encourage everybody, if you get an opportunity, look at, his ability to speak truth to power. That's why what you all are doing down in Florida is so important. Dr. Joseph Eccles Lowry, if you pull up a speech where he was he brought remarks at Coretta Scott King's funeral at New Birth, and how he was so committed to telling the truth, right? So he was up there with 4 presidents on the stage behind him. Former president, his daddy, H.W. Bush, and he was Jimmy Carter and Bill Clinton, and then a sitting president, which was his son at the time. And at that funeral, President George W. Bush on weapons of mass destruction. He called it mass distraction. This man was so serious that he called him out why he was a sitting president behind him, right? Being able to speak truth to power, being committed to it, that you will do it at any cost, right? You're gonna speak the truth, and that's why I'm so honored to have had great mentors like my mom and my dad and my grandparents. I look back at my granddad. I'm from Jacksonville, Florida, and every summer we would go over to St. Mary's, Georgia, right across the line from Jacksonville, to go and spend the summers. My younger brother and I, we would go and spend summers with my grandparents. And I saw my grandfather had the respect. This was in the early mid 70s, and my grandmother had the respect of the community. They were out doing voter registration back then, early 70s. I saw that in my family. My sister, who transitioned from breast cancer, but her commitment to homelessness in DC and being honored because she was on the line and committed to doing her part, as we talk about playing her position. When I look back at my family, I got family members who also has another foundation in our family, how big, Don't Miss a Beat, and they work with young people on music and understanding how music plays a part in the community and eating healthy. Just play your part, play your position, play your position well. You don't have to do a lot, just do what you do it well. Be committed to your position. And so being committed, one man or woman who's committed is far greater than 1,000 with interest. I'll say that again to the people who are listening. One man or woman who's committed is far greater than 1,000 with interest. Put me in the room, put me on the side of a team that is committed. Give an example. I played Little League sports growing up. I played football. Never forget this. I played football probably around 10, 12 years of age. And I remember we had about 30-something players on our team. And I remember playing this team, and we were decent. We weren't good. We were decent. And I remember playing this team, and they only had 12 players on their team. Now it takes 11 to suit up to play on the game, in a game. They had 12. So they had 11 players on the field and one person on the sideline with the coach. But they were committed, and they beat us. We had people playing, offense, and we had another set of people playing defense. We had people who were on special teams, but they beat us, right? Because they were committed. They were committed to winning. And we were interested in winning, but they were committed to winning. And so it was so difficult for us to accept that. But what we learned from that is your commitment means everything. Your commitment means everything. So I'm going to do a piece of poetry, and then I'll talk a little bit about this piece. But one poem that I want to start out with is a piece that's called 1619. Because if we have to understand what we're dealing with, even in Florida, you have to understand where it all started when we came to, and so this piece is called 1619. 1776. That year had nothing to do with me. Now, some people celebrate, but my ancestors didn't come over here on a business trip or on vacation, waving from the deck of the ship, drinking champagne or sipping tea. There were no welcome committees or homeowners associations to help us get acclimated to the neighborhood. No one dropping off a pie, offering a cup of sugar. No one saying if you need to borrow some money, just ask. It's all good. There were no classes to help translate the language. There were no directional signs written in our native tongue. Just a shotgun if we tried to run in those trees. All those trees, they served as a horrible reminder from which we were hung, 1776. For some of us, that's not where it all began. To be stripped of everything, to be told for taxation, apportionment only, you're only 3/5 of a man. Denied the opportunity to learn, beaten if caught trying to write or read. What did Dred Scott say? No rights in which a white man was bound to respect. That was their creed. 1776. Started long before that for some of us, long before having to guess how many jelly beans in a jar, bubbles in a bar of soap, not being able to sit on the front of a bus. It started long before not being able to register and vote. It started in 1619, simply put, stolen and put on a boat. We were stacked like corns on that ship, given minimum to eat, no clothing. Can you imagine that horrific ride over? I'm sure our ancestors who survived got very little, if any, sleep. We were taken from our native land. Our families were destroyed. Babies separated from their parents in 1619. Wait, was it 2019? 400 years later, don't you ignore. Don't ignore babies being put in cages, families being destroyed while today's master don't want to pay for healthcare or livable wage. Okay, I digress. 1619, our ancestors, they were strong and they were brave. Some so brave they jumped from the ship knowing they couldn't swim, but they knew death was better than being a slave. And in spite of it all, our ancestors continue to thrive. In spite of being created by laws like the Emancipation Proclamation, 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, and the Voters' Right of 1965, in spite of Needham Brown versus the Board of Education, our ancestors never lost their faith or their determination. So they built schools and colleges, became doctors, scientists, attorneys. And for us to be where we are today, we should all stand and applaud. But the real reason our ancestors survived because they knew their God was God. I mean, if it wasn't for 1619, America wouldn't be a fraction of what it is today. We toured the land, handled the cattle, only to be treated like prey. Our great, 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 great grandmothers nursed their babies, only to be violated in the middle of the night. The next morning, she had to act as if nothing had even happened while preparing breakfast for master, the kids, and his wife. I mean, if you're going to tell it, then please tell the whole story. Not just bombs bursting in there when we put our hands over our heart and we salute our glory. Talk about how we fought on the front lines and wars, dying for this country, trying to defend. If only knew when we returned to this country, even as veterans, our blackness was still considered a sin. Talk about how we needed papers just to walk down the street, papers that said we were free, and we had to protect those papers with everything we had, even while we were asleep. Talk about the good, the bad, the ugly of American history. How you stole the whole country and the people, and 400 years later, we're still fighting to be free. So what you have to elect President Obama? But what you owe our people, that's not even a drop of cold water in a hot bucket. I mean, what about Emmett Till, Black Wall Street, the bombing of the 4 little girls? And you think we should just throw our hands up and say, bump it? I know you say it's been 400 years. Why don't we move on, let it go? Why don't we just forget? We remember everything else, 9/11, Holocaust, dead presidents. Yeah, I said it. Before I take it back, I add more to it. You create laws and legislation, but you're consistently inconsistent because you turn around and you break your own rule. We're putting you on notice. We come to get what is rightfully ours with interest. And the way you treated us in 1619 is more than 40 acres and a mule. The poem is entitled 1619. It's an original piece of poetry. You can always go to hankstewart.net, go to YouTube, pull some of that. Thank you, Charles. I appreciate that. You can pull some of that off, and you can follow our work, follow my work. I'm fortunate to be joined at the hip with a young lady by the name of Gwen Mason and an amazing team. We have some amazing people in our foundation that does amazing work, incredible work with young people. And so we are a foundation that's been around for almost going on 19 years now. And we've had the impact and the luxury and the blessing to impact over 30,000 young people over the last 18 years. And we're really excited about it. We have a full 4-quarter thrust. And we're doing what Common Powell is doing. We're training the next leaders. There's a quote that says, if you call yourself a leader and you look back and no one is following you, you're simply taking a walk. And so we're making sure that we're training leaders. Gwen and I, we saw years ago, we saw a lot of our civil rights legends starting to transition and leave and become ancestors. And we saw a lot of them where their steps were getting slower. And we knew that we had to continue to do our part, and we had to do our part to help grow and train young people to be leaders. And so we have a full 4-quarter thrust. We start on a fiscal year, August, September, October is our first quarter. We teach our children about being financially astute and healthy. So that's our health and wellness quarter. And so we teach them about money and being healthy. We bring in all type of speakers and teach them about investing and understanding money, preparing, and having their parents to prepare them to and future generations to be ready for college and through the 529 program. And that's a program that parents can start saving for their children to go to college as early as when they're 5 years of age. So we have all kind of programs and workshops during February, during the August, September, and October months. And then November, December, January is our second quarter, and that's our community service quarter. And that's when we get out and grind in the community. We teach our kids how to make a difference in the community. So we've partnered with different churches. We go out and feed the homeless. And we, last year, I think we fed with our New Life Missionary Baptist Church, we fed over, I think, 2,200 families with boxes and turkeys and everything for Christmas, for Thanksgiving. And then for Christmas, we've done this program with Gilgal, which is a home for women who are recovering from substance abuse and being homeless. We would come in and usually anywhere between 25 to 30 women, and the staff would come in and get all of the women's sizes, and we would bring in gently used clothing, new clothing that they could go shopping. At least we would provide them with at least 3 weeks worth of professional work clothing, shoes, and purses and everything, so they can get back into the work environment. We would get their Christmas wishes and give each one of the ladies everything that they had on their Christmas wish, and the agency, all the things that they needed to keep their agency running throughout the year. And then we would bring in, chefs and all of the cook breakfast and lunch for them. Our kids would work with them, and they would have personal shoppers. And then we would have personal shoppers to come in and help them do makeovers. And when they did the makeover, we'd have them to walk the red carpet to Alicia Keys' This Girl's on Fire, and they would all cheer for them. We were their support system. And last year, we also worked with a place called the Smart Place, which is a school or for children and adults who are on the spectrum. And so we're real proud of that. And then in January, our young people, we teach them to sit at the feet of the seniors and the elders and interview them, get that transferable knowledge. And they ask them, and we did that every year. We do that every year around Dr. King's birthday. And we created a game called Kingo. Just like bingo, we would ask Dr. King facts, and our kids would sit down and play with these seniors. And it was really interesting when we first started doing this 18 years ago and going into nursing homes. And some of the seniors that our kids had an opportunity to sit down and talk to knew Dr. King personally. They played with him. And so that was some very precious times for them, because they got an opportunity to hear firsthand about Martin, Dr. King. And so we do that every year. That's our second quarter. Our education quarter is our third quarter. In February, we do a Black History program. And that's becoming even more crucial now when you talk about people who are trying to stop the history of African Americans and people of color. So our Black History, educating our young people on, that your history did not start. A.C. Hilliard, a scholar, told Dr. Dan Moore Sr. here, who's the founder of the Apex Museum, and he said, please tell in the Apex Museum that our history did not start with slavery. Please tell them that we come from kings and queens and we were mathematicians. Don't let our history start with slavery, because we were not just created and became slaves. We were so much more before we were slaves. And so our Black History program is so important. And then we do a Women's History program. Women have played a pivotal role in not only Black history, but history in general. And if you look at the success of the last major elections, it was women, particularly Black women, whose votes took us over the top in so many different places. Women have never really gotten their just due, and particularly Black women have not gotten their just due of their commitment to America, to the process that, you know, they carry the water, and names sometimes never get mentioned, Charles. Their names never get mentioned. And so, you know, it's the people like the Dr. Terry's and so many of the ladies that come along with the groups that you bring from Seattle that goes through you know, Georgia and Alabama and all these different, you know, Tennessee and learn. It's so many of it's the women who do the work. And so we have a women's history program that we highlight women, and particularly Black women. And then in April, we do a career day. It is so important that we set our children up for success. And so we help get jobs for young people. A lot of the schools that we work in are Title I schools. And so these students sometimes are the gap money for their families. And so they're having to work at a McDonald's, help keeps the lights on. It's unfortunate, but their money helps their family to keep on moving. And so we make sure that those children have jobs. And our final quarter is our social quarter. We do an anti-bullying in May. June, we do a networking, and in July, we do etiquette. And our kids have their own white linen. I'm so honored to say that Common Power has been one of our sponsors for our white linen affair, and particularly our youth white linen. And we bring a professional in and teach our kids not only about table etiquette, but social media etiquette, what to and not to do on social media. Your digital footprint is forever. It's going to be around forever. So make sure you're careful about what you're putting on. People will and will not employ you about what your history looks like on social media, what you say. And so we teach our kids the importance of that. But we also have a seat at the table. And, you know, and we're honored to be on the board for workforce development and helping develop parents and children have jobs. We sit at the table for the Galt Center, which is formerly the National Juvenile Defender Center, to make sure that every child that goes before the juvenile court system having fair and competent representations. Too many of our kids are being railroaded into taking plea bargains and things that other kids are getting slapped on the wrist while our kids are being sent and locked up behind. And so we want to make sure that we advocate and fight for our kids. And so, you know, the Stewart Foundation is busy. Gwen Mason and the entire family, you know, we are committed to this work in our community, making sure we actually have a Vote For Me campaign as well, where our kids go out and register voters. And the Vote For Me campaign is real simple, where a child our kids are between 8 and 18. They can register to vote at 17 and a half, but a lot of our kids who are not registered, we send them out on the street and we teach them how to register, adults to get registered. And so the script is something similar to this. Hello, my name is, you know, Austin Stewart, or hello, my name is Milan Mason, or hello, my name is Jacob, or hello, my name is, you know, Sean. I'm a part of the Stewart Foundation. Are you registered to vote? And the adult says, no, I'm not. The child says, well, will you please register so you can vote for me because I'm not old enough? Will you vote for my health care, for my education? You know, help to make sure that there's some fair and laws on gun violence. And so we teach our children how to advocate for themselves. And so we're really honored and proud to be a part of Common Power, a branch of that, but we're doing the exact same work, and that's the work in the community commitment. So I'm honored to be here tonight, this morning, wherever you're listening at. I would encourage each and every one of you all to be a part of the Common Power. Make sure that that you are a part of the work. You do your job. You play your position. You play your position. You know, if your position is knocking on doors, play your position well. If your position is, you know, train well. You know, if you're a physician, you know, make sure that people can come in and get a, you know, they can be looked over, make sure their health is good, because if your health is good, then you can get back out there and play your position. It's the people that doesn't get a lot of credit in a championship is the medical team, the team that keeps the players healthy. You know, the cafeteria, the people that feeds them good quality food. All of those things, the diet, you know, their dietary needs. All of those things play a factor in championships. You know, we get all excited about the people who are on the field who won, or the people who are on the court or the diamond, or, you know, who wins. But, you know, you go back and you look at, you know, Serena Williams, all of her wins, look at her diet, look at her trainers, look at people who prepared her to be good. It's a whole lot of people behind the scenes who do the work to make sure that we're in a position to be successful. And so play your part and play your part well. So I'll close with this piece. And the piece is simply entitled, I Accept. And so I'm challenging each and every person who's listening to accept the challenge, right? To accept your part and being a part of this movement. You know, there's so many people, you know, my mantra
Hey,
is, it's our time. Yes, yes.
it's David here. How you doing,
Hey,
man?
David, how you doing?
Good. I came in a few minutes ago, man. And before you close here, where I think I know where you're going. I've been quoting that phrase from you, with, you know, full credit to you about it's our time. So, hey, I just wanted to say I'm with you right here. I'm sitting there next to you on the screen right now, and wanted to say hi. It's 3:30 in the morning for you right there. Appreciate you, sir, joining us and for everything you've been saying.
David, and I appreciate you. And I said this earlier. I was actually listening to the interview you had with the professor who was fired, you know, unjust.
Yeah,
because,
sure.
yeah, and it was an amazing interview, and his commitment. You know, you know, Michael Jordan. If you know anything about Michael Jordan, one of the things that Michael Jordan did was he was always looking for opportunities to get, you know, to motivate him to play even harder. And so your interview with that particular professor, you know, I'm always looking for new and creative ways to get more excited about what I do. And his commitment to being a part, and his family's commitment, right?
Yeah.
And I would encourage anybody to go to the GoFundMe, because you talked about the police officers who were funded, I think $2 million just because, you know, of the guy who was killed in New York. But fund that gentleman too. You know, help him, because his commitment to tell the truth, to speak truth to power, needs to be supported. So again, thank you, you know, David, and thank you, Terry, and thank you, Charles, and thank you to the entire team. There's a whole lot of people that comes with you all that does the work. And so thank you for what you do as well.
Hey, man, thank you. Appreciate it. We love you, and we love working with you. You go ahead and bring it home, man, and then I'll ask you a question after you bring it home.
Okay, sure. And so, you know, so that's my mantra. It's our time, it's our turn. If we don't do our part, David, it's our fault. And so I because of the people who invested in me, my parents and my grandparents and my village, you know, my cousins and nieces and uncles and nephews, and then my extended family, my civil rights family, my human rights family, you know, all the people who invested in me, I have to do my part. And or are they invested in the wrong person? So this poem is simply entitled, I Accept. What are you giving me? What are you putting in my hand? What you're giving me has just altered it, has changed my plans. Why are you looking at me like that? There's this look in your eyes. Am I even qualified to accept this? Will there be a ceremony? Do I need cap and gown? Need I be baptized? I know you're tired. I know you deserve rest. How can I say no with all that you've poured into me, all that you've invested? I'll take it. Okay, I'll take the baton, I carry the torch. You've earned the right to relax, the right to sit on the porch. I accept the baton and all the responsibilities that it holds. I accept the challenge to stand tall and bold, to fight for justice, to stay on the wall. I'll do what needs to be done. Yes, I, Christian, I accept the call. And integrity will stand with me, even if with the stand alone, to speak truth, no matter who's wrong. You fought the good fight. You completed your assignment. David, pass me the baton. Our souls are on alignment. I'll sacrifice my body just like you. I'll stand or kneel against racism, sexism, discrimination, regardless of the hue. I'll get up early and I'll stay up late and tear just like you. I won't take the bait. I accept the baton because it's my turn. I accept all of our ancestors who were raped, beaten, those who were burned. I accept because before midnight, December the 31st, 1862, our ancestors, they were praying to God on their knees. I accept all of our ancestors who were hung from those trees. I accept because dogs and water holes didn't turn you around. I accept because our ancestors spoke up and spoke out, even when they didn't know the language. They didn't know a person, place, or a thing was a noun. I accept because You sat when you had tired feet. I sat because the only way we could walk into that hotel was through the back door, and it was only to wash dishes, cook on the bed, change the sheets. I sat because America was built on the land that our ancestors toiled. I stand because our ancestors' blood fertilized these soils. So if it rains, I stand. If it's hot, no fan, I stand with the weight on my shoulders. But the foundation that I stand on makes me bolder. I stand for those who didn't get a chance. I stand for those who died because a white woman said at me, he took a glance. I even stand for those who look like me but may have forgotten, although our ancestors were side by side in the fields picking cotton. I stand for seniors, I stand for children, I fight for one, I advocate for millions. I stand for those ancestors' dreams of freedom they would hold fast. I stand for so many of our ancestors who died for this country and the flag was never flown for them in half staff or half mast. I stand for those living in the bridges and sleeping on makeshift pallets. I stand because our ancestors knew our voice was in the census, was in our vote, it was in the booth, it was on the ballot. So yea, do I walk through the valleys and the shadows of death. This is about others now, no longer about self. Give me a baton, I carry with pride. I will link the torch when the baton hit the ground, even when I'm tired. You train me. Now I'm one of your lieutenants. I take the baton from my ancestors, so one day I can pass it to our descendants. I accept to you. So I put on this shirt and this tie. This tie was a tie that Dr. C.T. Vivian's family gave me for Dr. Vivian. You can see he's got it on right here. This tie and this hat is a hat that Congressman John Lewis signed for me. This is one of the hats that when they named the ships after him. And I was fortunate to have great relationships with Dr. Vivian, Dr. Lowry, Ms. Anona Clayton, and all of, and I'm not dropping names and bragging about those. I'm committed to their work and keeping their work going, and so many other people. And so thank you, Carmen Powell. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, David. Thank you to the entire staff, the entire team. Thank you to all the people who knock on doors. You know, thank you to all the foot soldiers and all the folk who work really, really hard, get up early and stay up late, have to take a nap in the middle of the day, but they get it done. They grind, they play their position well.
You know, I so appreciate that, Hank. Can you tell us again, you went through that a little quick there about the tie and the hat again.
So this tie was given to me from Dr. C.T. Vivian's, and they sent all of his mentors one of his ties. And so this tie is a tie that Dr. C.T. Vivian wore. So you can see him wearing the same tie right now, and they sent that tie to me. And so I get an opportunity to, you know, to carry his legacy. So every now and then I wear this tie out at an event, and if I'm doing something, there's a poem that I wrote that was motivated by Dr. C.T. Vivian, and so called Those Trees, and I wear this piece if I'm going to recite that piece. This is a hat that Congressman John Lewis, you can see his signature on there, signed it to me. He gave me this hat when a set of Navy ships and fleets were named after him. And so this is a hat that I would cherish. I have so many other memorabilia around here. I wish you could see all the things. You can see over my shoulder right now a picture of me and Dr. C.T. Vivian. You know, I don't have the luxury of not being in this fight, David. I mean,
yeah,
too many people invested in me. I've got to. So that's why I can't ignore that call when it comes in from Terry, or it comes in from Charles, or it comes in from you, comes in from anybody in the team from Carmen Powell, because we're working to make this a better place for not just us, but for the children yet unborn.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Hank. Wait, where did Christian go? Wait a minute, Christian, come on back. Thank you so much, Hank. Christian was on the screen with us there for a second, who was just on our last teacher educator learning tour with us. And I was going to ask him what he was going to, there he goes. Hey, Christian, good to see you, man. How are you?
Hey, David. I'm good. Reliving the trip through this. This is awesome. How are you doing?
I'm doing really great. You're calling in from Winnipeg right now?
Regina,
no, Saskatchewan.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So what? We're going to come over to you, Christian. Your segment's coming up right now. But anything you want to say to Hank here, because we're all here together.
Well, I'll say I'll say Hank was really the start of our trip. He really set the tone for the group and how we looked at our perception of what we were going to experience, with his stories and the energy that he brought. I remember sitting out of that Dr. King Center in the scorching sun, but being dialed into everything he was saying. And um, the one quote that I asked him to write down on my phone, I still have, is making the unconscious conscious of the things that are happening in society. And really that set the tone for me and put words to what I was feeling and experiencing living here. So it really started with Hank, and the one story that stands out to me was him mowing his lawn with his with his weights on and listening to music. Affects, like being affected. So I'm like, okay, I got it. That's the key, right? Really soaking in every single thing that he said.
And and what I Charles, what I want to, and David and Terry, what I want to thank you all for is bringing young people like Christian in, because Christian had an opportunity to sit at the table and and ride in vans and talk to people who has the same grind. He's an educator, right? And so one of the things that I remember Christian saying, David, was, sometimes he gets burned out. How does he re-energize? How does he stay motivated? And I say, you got to find your tribe. You got to find your village. You got to find people who are doing the same thing you're doing. And you got to, a dead battery can't jump another dead battery off, David. It just can't. You have to have, you have to have somebody who has energy, and we have to go places to rekindle and rejuvenate. That's why this teaching is so powerful, Christian. That's why what David and Terry and Charles, and I you hear me say those three names, but you have to know it's so many other people with them.
Absolutely.
And the funders and the donors, that we got to talk about them too, David. The people who makes this possible to train people to move that forward. You got to give a big round of applause. And I've had the luxury of meeting a lot of those donors, and I know what it takes to keep a foundation moving forward. And so you have to really applaud those people who not only put their mouth but their resources behind this work.
Yeah.
And so we just it's just our time. It's our turn. If we don't do our part, it's our fault. That's where we are.
Absolutely.
It's just our time. So thank you, David.
Time.
I took too much time, but I appreciate you allowing me.
Not at all. I didn't take enough time.
Hank, man, we love you. I appreciate you, man. We'll see you again really soon. And from Atlanta, Georgia to Regina, Saskatchewan, we're going to go. Thank you. Here we go. Thank you so much. Good night, Hank.